Okay, video 16, if I'm keeping count. Viewports. Right, I'm going to load up Paint to try and explain viewports. Should be interesting. Right, the canvas is our, let me get the paintbrushes on. The canvas is our screen. Now, by default, the viewport, which is the bit you see onto the levels and everything, is the entire screen. That's a poor rectangle. It's the entire screen. Okay. If we have got a large level, we have scaled the screen to fit inside the viewport. Okay. But what we can do is we can do split screen. And we can say, right, well, in the A side, show a particular part of the level, and let's put the tank in the center. Okay, and move the level around so we always see the tank in the center, right, and the level follows the tank. And we can do the same on the other. So instead of saying the same scene in each half, we see the bit that is around the tank. Okay. Now, when we do viewports, and I'll set this up properly, it's a good idea to have like a margin or some gap to delineate where the edge of your viewport is, because particularly with our tiles, it could look like you're on the same screen. So you need some sort of divider. So we need some margin. And when we do 4 screens, we're going to need a margin like that as well. Alright. Now, in order to use viewports, there's a lot of setup data. So we need to specify the size of, let me change colour, the size of this rectangle for our, I've got a nick in my trackball, that's why I keep struggling with this, keep dropping it on the floor. We've got specified this triangle, so we've got the 2 red ones for when we're 2 players playing. I'll use blue, we need to specify this, this, and this rectangle for 3 players, and then we won't have one for the other, and then the purple rectangle we'll need to specify for the 4th player. Okay, so we'll end up quartering the screen for 3 and 4 players, but we've got to set all these up. Okay, and the size of these viewports is all relative to the screen size. So that's the first bit. That's what this video is going to be about. Just setting the viewport data up, because it can take ages as it is. Okay, so let's flick back to our game. If I select my game properly. Okay, I'm going to create a new class to put this information in, because I don't want it bogging up the rest of my game. So I'm going to go to Project. Eventually, I'm then going to select Add Class. A dialog box will chugger up. I'm going to call this Views. Okay, just get it to add it. Now, I'm going to add my libraries first, which is not normally what I do. I normally do it when I get stuck. So I'm going to add in my engine as a reference, and I'm going to add in the, I don't need much, I just need my standard X and A stuff. X and A dot framework, it's the graphic stuff because I need access to some graphic stuff. Okay, so I just added those 2 libraries. Now, let's flick back to Paint. I'm gonna, this margin that I've left, this gap, okay, the black gap, I'm gonna specify that as a constant value so I can manipulate it and change it. Okay, but that's gonna have an effect. Right, we're gonna need to know how wide half the screen is and how tall half the screen is. Alright, so that we can work out where these rectangles are. So, in our code, let's first off create some of these things. So I'm going to create a constant integer called margin, and I'm going to set that to 0 to start with, and then we'll see. Well, I'll now set it to 10, and then we'll mess about with that, and I'll show you the reason why we've made it. I'm then going to create a couple of width by, no, it's got, I want something to say width half, but I don't want it to be a massive word. I'm going to call it W2, and that is going to be taken from, and we're going to get the Visual Studio to calculate it for us. It's going to be the screen width divided by 2, and we're going to do the same for the height. So that's going to be screen size dot height divided by 2. So that just gives us an easy way. Instead of having to write this, we can just put W2 when we mean half the screen height. Okay. Right. We need to define our different viewports. We're first off going to define one that's the entire size of the screen. Okay, our full screen viewport, because we're going to have to recreate these. By default, the engine creates one, but we're going to have to clear viewports and create a right. So we're going to create a player view, and we're going to call it full screen. Let's put an S, camel case it, full screen, and then we're going to say that equals a new player view that contains a viewport that is the size, so it starts at 0 and 0, so that's the top left hand corner of the screen, and it's going to be gm dot screen size, so full width and full height. Okay, so that creates our full screen viewport, and we'll need that. So I'm going to put a comment of that full screen view. That's where all our text it gets drawn. Okay, so that isn't split into 4, because that would look awful. Okay, now we're going to create our split screen for 2 players viewport. So that's the red one here. So let's make. I don't think I can make the brush far. Oh, it's awful. So that's my red rectangle here, which goes from the top left hand corner to the halfway point minus the margin, and another one that starts at the halfway point plus the margin and goes all the way up to the edge. Okay, so that's what we're going to create first. Right, so we're going to need 2, so we're going to have player view, and this is going to be player 1 half, so that's the left hand side of the screen, and that's going to be new player view. So the format's going to be similar, so we're going to say new viewport. So we want this one to start in the top left hand corner, and we want to go halfway across the screen, which was W2, but we want to put a margin in there, so we're going to take a margin off, and then we want it to be full height, so we're going to say gm dot screen size dot height. Okay, so it starts top left hand corner, it goes halfway along the screen, but not fully half. We want this 10 pixel margin, and then we want it to be full height. Let's do the other player view, so that's the one for player 2, for P2 half equals new player view, new viewport. No, right, this time it's not going to be naught, because the position across we want to be halfway across plus the margin, so we want width 2, so this is where it's going to start, plus the margin. Okay, the height we want it at the top of the screen, because it's, if we go back to our paint diagram, it's at the top of the screen, the second one here. Okay, so it's half plus the margin across, but it starts here. So go back to our code, so it starts at 0, and then the width of it is going to be the same width as player 1, so that's going to be half the screen minus the margin. Okay, and the height is going to be full height, so screen size dot height. 2 parentheses there. Okay, so that creates our first one. It looks quite minging, and I said it was going to be complicated. Now we've got to do the quarters. Okay, so let's put a comment on that. 2 player split views. Right, let's create another comment, and let's say 4 player quarter views. Right, so we've got 4 to make this time. So we're going to go on static player view. Right, so P1 quarter 1, keeping it short. So that's going to be a new player view, new viewport. Right, so we want player 1s. Let's put back at our paint. These are the blue ones. Player 1 is going to be top left hand corner, half the way across minus the margin, half the way down minus the margin. Alright. So that's going to be 0, 0, but we want W2 minus margin and H2 minus margin. Minus margin, not math box, whatever the hell that is. Okay, so that's that one. The next one is player 2, and I want player 2 to be in the right hand quarter. I'm going to change the name of that. I'm just going to put, go away. I'm just going to call it P1Q and P2Q. So I'll just change the name of those. Right, so this is going to be player view, new viewport. Right, so horizontally it starts at the width, half the width plus the margin. Vertically we want it at the top of the screen, so 0. And then we want the size. So all the sizes are going to be the same for these. They're all going to be half the width minus the margin, and they're all going to be half the height minus the margin. All of them. So the only thing it's going to change is the where is the top left hand corner. Right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy these 2 and paste them. Obviously I've got to rename them because it'll start mining, so that's going to be the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter. Right, so let's have a look at player 3. Go back to paint. Player 3 is here, so it's the left hand side is at 0, but we want the height to start halfway down the screen plus the margin. Okay, plus the margin. So let's go back to our code. So not for the X position, but we want half the height plus the margin. The width and height the same, because they all want to be the same size. It wouldn't be fair to give someone a bigger viewport. Okay, unlike the Wii U, which is they were proposing that. Right, the start position for player 4 is here. So this is, it's this bit that we're interested in, this corner. So it's half the width plus the margin across and half the height plus the margin down. So we want half the width plus the margin, so that's there from when we copied it, plus we want H2 plus margin. Make sure you spell it using the picker so you get the right sizes. Okay. Right, we've been going for quite a while. We're now going to create some viewports, some lists of viewports to make the rest of the programming easier to do. So we're going to create some more data, and these are going to be arrays. Okay, so I'm going to say static player view, but I want an array of them, so I'll put the square brackets. I'm going to call this split 2, and it's going to be equal to, and inside braces I'm just going to say P1 half followed by P2 half. So I'm just making a list to show, right, they're the player views for when we got 2 players. Alright, now I'm going to create one for 3 players. So player view split 3, because you might have 3 players. So we're going to have P1 quarter followed by P2 quarter, followed by P3 quarter. And we're going to do our 12 player one. Player view, and call this one split 4, and that's going to be equal to P1Q, followed by P2Q, followed by P3Q, followed by P4Q. Okay, so that's just specifying what viewports we've got. Right, I'm going to end this video here, and then the next video is going to show you how to use all this data we've set up based off of this brilliant diagram to actually show the viewports and to send to the screen. But we'll do it in steps. Okay, we'll show the viewports first, and then we'll get the tanks moving the viewports around them. Okay.